Good morning, dear Dharma friends. As I said before, didn't we just do this? Have you ever driven across the country? You stop at a rest stop and you get back in the car and you think, did we stop? Or didn't we just stop? Or maybe that's kind of how life is, isn't it? Well, I travel through the world known as Robert Beatty, and I am coming to you as a broadcast from the Portland Insight Meditation Community, the Western Portland, Oregon. And we've been doing this in the morning since the beginning of COVID, and we'll continue after COVID. So I have a poem. One of my favorite poets, Naomi Shihab Nye. So letting this poem flow over and through you. It's called So Much Happiness. It is difficult to know what to do with so much happiness. With sadness, there's something to rub up against, a wound to heal with lotion and cloth. When the world falls in around you, you have pieces to pick up, something to hold in your hands like ticket stubs or change. But happiness floats. It doesn't need you to hold it down. It doesn't need anything. Happiness lands on the roof of the next house singing and disappears when it wants to. You are happy either way. Even the fact that you once lived in a peaceful treehouse and now live over a quarry of noise and dust cannot make you unhappy. Everything has a life of its own. It too could wake up filled with possibilities of coffee cake and ripe peaches, and love even the floor which needs to be swept, the soiled linens and scratched records. Since there is no place large enough to contain so much happiness, you shrug. Raise your hands and it flows out of you into everything you touch. You are not responsible. You take no credit, as the night sky takes no credit for the moon but continues to hold it and share it, and in that way be known. Since there's no place large enough to contain so much happiness, you shrug. You raise your hands and it flows out of you into everything you touch. You are not responsible. You take no credit. As the night sky takes no credit for the moon but continues to hold it and share it, and in that way be known. We're on a strange journey, aren't we? Let's remind ourselves of the refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. The Buddha. The capacity of the human being to be awake. Siddhartha Gautama, who woke up and became the Buddha, who manifested the Buddha, spent his entire lifetime, his entire adult life, 40-some years, encouraging people to do what it would take for them to have the same experience he did, to experience the world as he did. We take refuge in the Buddha, in the Dharma, in the way things actually are, in the complete, utter changingness of the world. And the Sangha, the community of practice. I take refuge in the Sangha. And please join in this little chant or song if you wish. It's a way of bringing these beautiful concepts into the heart. Oops. I have a sleeve that's catching on the guitar strings. We might begin with a moment of honoring impermanence. Sounds come into being, and then they disappear. The essence of life is this beginning and disappearing. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sangaya, Namo Sangaya, Namo Sangaya. The practice of being awake. Not just awake from sleep, but awake from identification with moods and thoughts, ideologies, belief systems. Let us notice the mood with which we come to practice. Is it an expansive mood or a contracted mood? Does the mind approach this day open-heartedly or with fear? And how about the sense of restedness, to be rested or to be not rested? These energy states create filters through which we see the world. And we can land here in in-breathing and out-breathing. In this breath right now. There may well be, probably are, tendencies for the mind to wander. What is your attitude toward the wandering mind? Toward the worrying mind? Toward the judgmental mind? One option is to simply be aware of it as nature. The mind wanders. And we can use in-breathing and out-breathing as a handrail, a sort of place of stability, if you'd like. Becoming deeply intimate with in-breathing and out-breathing. Resting here. Noticing anything else that happens, sounds, thoughts. And practicing with a deep attitude of love and compassion. I aspire to love and accept myself. I aspire to love and accept this that I take to be myself. This living process. Exactly as it is in this moment. And when I discover that there's suffering, there's hurting, there's anxiety, there's stress, I intend to hold myself in sweet compassion. Compassion now. Meaning simply to be willing to accept and comfort myself, acknowledging the incredible challenge of life. And I do this one breath at a time.
its infrastructure on its Amazon website.
Sounds. Hearing. Sounds no different from thoughts. They arise and pass away. Resting back into the present moment. Nowhere special to get to. Really nothing to get rid of. The 5 hindrances may make an appearance one by one or in packs. Is there desire? Is there wanting something to be different? Is there some sense that the solution to this moment would be to have something else? Or is there something present toward which there is disliking or aversion? Or is the mind restless, agitated, worried, planning, grasping? Or falling asleep, dull, sleepy, sloth and torporish? Or is there doubt? On the other hand, the mind might be quite luminous. There might be a lot of mindfulness present. There could be effortless concentration, the mind resting in some object or another. There could be vast equanimity in which everything that arises is quite acceptable. There could be curiosity. What's going on? What is this that I take to be myself? There could be joy, happiness, delight. Making room for everything. Noticing the spontaneous arising of wandering minds. Memories, perhaps. And now they seem so real. It's as though one falls into the trance, like going to a very well-made movie. And quite suddenly you're back 50 years ago with someone, or there are old emotions playing. And then it suddenly becomes so clear. Oh, this is a dream. This is a memory. Mindfulness, awareness, presence lights up the situation and the reality. This is the awakening of the Buddha. We don't need to wait for retreats or years of practice or some other situation to arise. Awakening occurs right now. One wandering mind, one dream after another. Perhaps the mind is calm and quiet and pleasant. Why not drink that in? Let the sympathetic nervous system quiet down and become quietly parasympathetic. Be cautious, though, not to think of this as the goal. This arises because of certain conditions. On the other hand, the mind might be worrying or planning or obsessing or struggling over something. Can you allow that to be equally okay? The weather of this moment. In either or both cases, knowing both the objects, the state, and the awareness of the state. We are practicing, in a way. We are manifesting being alive in the present moment, being here. Simply being here. And to do this, we learn to receive all the polarities equally. Gain, loss, pleasure, pain, fame, disrepute, sickness, health, certainty and confusion. And let's add to our meditative moment the contemplation about our own longing for happiness and contentment and relief. We may get glimpses. We will most likely get glimpses, if we practice much at all, of sweet release and the path to sweet release. We can take our practice from our meditation cushion into life. Ultimately, so there's no difference in a way between sitting meditation and walking, or sitting and chopping carrots, or sitting and washing the bathtub, or sitting and driving the car. You have some plans probably for today. Think of one of those things you might be doing. You might be planning to drive somewhere. Or maybe it's time for a shower soon, or whatever it is. In this moment, imagine in a very relaxed way pulling out the key to open the car door, or stepping into the shower, or whatever it is. And let yourself be surprised by how aware you can be of this simple, everyday activity. And once you establish mindfulness in the activity, why not continue? Why not take delight in the moments of life? This is what it's like to turn left. This is what it's like to speed up, to harmonize with the rest of the traffic on the freeway to get on. This is the slight tension that's there when looking left and right, wondering, is there time to pull out here? Make room for yourself in your life. And please now, notice the aliveness which is you, sitting here, breathing. Notice the contact with the chair, the life in your hands and fingers. There's so much life there. Notice the life in your chest and abdomen, your shoulders, your neck and head, your face. Life in the face. Let a small smile come to your lips. It can be very small and you can still notice it, just the slightest twitch of a muscle. And then letting your eyes become the object of observation, this region of the universe which is your eyes. And know it, know them, know it. And then know the intention and the effort that's involved in opening the eyes, and then letting them open. But being aware of seeing. It's something we've done in these mornings so many times, hundreds of times. And yet every time can be fresh. Seeing and seeing Sangamates. friends on the way through a lifetime. Take a moment to notice one face and then another face. Wish this person well. And I want to share my screen. How will that work? Let me see if it'll work. No, I don't think that's right. Going to go back. I think I have to do this first. Okay. Here it is. This is a picture of Bob Brunges, who died last night, about 8:30 our time. He was in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. He was Jennifer's stepfather. He came into Rita Letty's life about 25 years ago, Jen's mother. Came into my life 10 years ago. This was a man of extraordinary generosity and kindness. Here they are at the Japanese garden. He was 89 years old. Rita is 79, and she is in memory care in Plantation, Florida. So I look at this and I see someone that I knew fairly well. Someone from whom I received the incredible gift of his kindness and generosity. He took really good care of Rita. He had bad COPD near the end. And this is Rita and Jennifer and Bob Brunges, who disappeared yesterday. What a strange thing. So I call to the altar of my heart, our hearts, perhaps Bob Brunges, and the 150,000 other people who died on the earth yesterday. There's a lot of coming and going. And before long, it'll be our turn. So in the meantime, why not pick a picture here and wish this person well for today? May it be impossible for you to get into your car without being mindful. Announcements. Gary Sanders, first Saturday of the month. I think you may have received yesterday, if not yesterday, today, an invitation. There's going to be a fundraiser for Brighton Bush Hot Springs. For those of you that aren't from around here and have never been to Brighton Bush is a worker-owned collective that is centered around some hot springs that have been used by human beings for 10,000 years or more. And there were 44, I think, little cabins left over, the 100-year-old cabins that they'd refurbished, and they all burned up in the big fire last year, big forest fire. And I like to say this, that if there are places on the world where miracles happen, like Lourdes and these places that people make pilgrimage to, Breitenbush is one of them. I've seen them. I've experienced them myself. I've experienced profound transformation there. So anyway, it turns out that I'm going to be the MC or host, the officiant of a weekend of various spiritual and psychological practices, starting Friday night, the 7th. Information for that is on the website. It is certainly on the Breitenbush website. And you will today be receiving, probably if you're on any of the lists, an email or a message from PIMC that in the first couple of months this year, we experienced an unexpected decline in contributions. And I think it's that people are getting sick of being online, and they're going out and doing other things. So there's an appeal coming out. If you are already a contributor, a monthly contributor, if you could increase your contribution, that'd be great. And if you're not already, you're missing out on a great opportunity. An opportunity to practice generosity and to support other people coming through the doors, so to speak. And speaking of the doors, I'm going to find out today, I think this dealing with the city and permits is really tedious. But I believe that construction will begin within the next 2 weeks. And we've had several meetings. There's a secondary gift, tertiary gift, where we're going to be having new carpet and new lighting and paint and so on in the living room. So when we move back in the summer, I hope the summer, the place is going to be very spiffy. So I think that's plenty of announcements, tiresome as they are sometimes. So what's up with you? Have you some question or comment or sharing? In my mind, I think questions, complaints. My mind. It's not my mind, the mind. So if you have something you'd like to share or question, please just unmute yourself. I am going to, even though I hate to, I'm going to go pull down the blind. Yeah, there.
Hi, Robert.
Hello, Carol.
Carol on Quadra, another beautiful morning. So I must say, even though we've been connecting on Zoom for the past year, I still find it strange talking or speaking to a screen. But there is something that I've been wanting to share that you've said during these mornings that has helped me with my practice. But I need to backtrack a little bit about, a few years ago, Danielle and Steve and my husband and I traveled through India together, through southern India. And we had the opportunity to meet a yogi who we did a meditation with, and then we're able to ask questions to. And it was the year that Donald Trump had come into power, and things were just feeling really heavy and dark in the world, just the energy of the world. And so I shared this with the yogi, that I was finding this difficult, and particularly worrying about the children who are coming into the world over the next while, and wondering how, or if there's anything that I could do to ease that feeling of anguish. And he suggested that at the beginning of my practice, my meditation practice, that I take all of the children, those children of the world, and put them in my heart and just hold them um, in the peace of my own heart, which I found very helpful. But I also found it sometimes felt like a bit much. And
Right. Okay.
and so the other thing that I've worked with over the years is Tonglen, kind of a similar practice, taking the anguish or the suffering, shared suffering of everyone, and breathing it in to my heart. And sometimes that's felt kind of heavy. So the missing piece was when you spoke about it not being our personal heart, but the Buddha or Kuan Yin. And that just was a big free up. So it was just a simple, there's something very simple, but for some reason I just had felt this responsibility of putting all of this energy in my own heart, and that just kind of opened things up for me. So in any case, that's really been a great help, and I'm just very appreciative, and I just wanted to thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Yes, 2 billion children are a lot to hold in your heart.
Yeah.
However, recognizing that we are fleeting transitory vehicles for something which is of infinite vastness, then it really only makes sense to think of it as the heart of the Buddha, Kuan Yin. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I didn't know you did that trip to South India together. That's cool.
We did. We actually did a lot of traveling over the years, and yeah, that's one of the big losses of not having Steve with us anymore. Is he was a wonderful traveler.
Mm-hmm. He would have been.
Yeah. We really enjoyed our time together.
Thank you. There's a note in the chat, someone who missed the sharing of the photos, Melissa. I showed 6 or 7 photos of, I don't know what his relationship, my wife Jennifer's stepfather, who died last night. And he was 89. And it was really time. She was there a couple of months ago, and she came home a little shaken by how pained he was. He had congestive heart failure, and it was really time. But he was an amazingly beautiful man, very kind. Took great care of. He took care of his whole family. I figure there's, I don't know, he has 60 grandchildren or something like that. Quite a remarkable life. Great grandchildren. So thank you, Carol. He and Rita met at church, and they both had lost their partner several years earlier. And it's a lovely story. They started going out to movies together, but they weren't interested in another relationship. And then it turned into this really beautiful love story where they did a lot together. Quite cool. And they had 25 years, I think. It's a realization that's come to me and it's pretty poignant. I've had experiences where I always think of one in particular. In my youth, I met funny, I can't even remember whether it was a guy or a woman. I don't remember. I met a person traveling on a train, and we talked all night in the dome of a train car, one of those view domes. Funny, I can't remember. But anyway, we shared so much. We shared really deeply and intimately. And there was another fellow I traveled. His name was David Kloiber. I met him in Australia, and we traveled together for a month maybe. We went to New Zealand together and hitchhiked around New Zealand. And I never heard of him after the trip. And there's so many people like that. But we camped together for a while. And that's my sense right now with Jennifer. We're camping together. We have a house and a mortgage and kids, but there will come a time when we're not together. And so the opportunity to actually share some time and to make to help each other grow up is really precious. As with Bob. The last time I saw Bob, I was 99% sure I would not see him again. We had a really fine parting. I wrote him a couple of times. So, let us make hay while the sun shines, I guess would be the response. Anybody else have something you'd like to share?
Good morning, it's Denise.
Hello, Denise.
Hello, I'm at home in Corvallis, so I've got a different view here. But I have been reflecting a lot on equanimity and how equanimity, to be equanimous just seems like the goal. And I've realized that it's been out of my reach because I've been grasping so hard for it.
Mm-hmm.
And and it just has made it so, became so clear that it won't be around if I keep trying so hard.
You mean having equanimity about the lack of equanimity?
Yeah, just like sort of seeing, if I were to be equanimous, right? If someone were to describe, oh, Denise, she's, equanimity defined, that would mean, that I was a successful meditator and that I was good and that I had somehow won some sort of battle that I didn't really realize I was in.
Mm. And so, from my childhood, it would also mean I would go to heaven.
Yeah, I was raised that way too, but I never had the fear of hell, which is strange. Like the fear of hell, somehow I missed that train.
Good.
Yeah, I don't know, as a Baptist too, so. Oh yeah, Cam is here behind me with the same guy. Cam, you see that?
I saw, yeah.
So anyway, thanks for helping me to get there with that.
Yeah. Hooray.
Robert, good morning. It's Sandra.
Hello, Sandra.
I too was thinking about equanimity while I was meditating this morning, and trying to sort it out in my mind, because it seems like a good state to be in. And so then thinking about, well, what is it? So thinking about, well, there's these negative objects, there's these positive objects, and that equanimity is the balance of those objects. But then I got tangled in, well, what are those objects? And maybe that's not quite it. I was wondering if you could speak a bit more about what is this equanimity? It seems like a good idea.
Well, it is one of the 7 enlightenment factors, so I think it's highly, highly advised. What came up as you spoke was I had a conversation with a wise elder friend of mine yesterday. See if I can do justice to this. He was remembering an interview he saw with Krishnamurti, or heard, 45 years ago, maybe more, that stuck with him. Someone asked Krishnamurti a question about aren't you troubled by all the Krishnamurti came from India originally? Aren't you? What about those all the strife that's happening in India and the battles that are going on? And Krishnamurti's response was, I don't mind. It's a strange response. I don't mind. And there's so much in the world that we can upset ourselves about, especially if we turn on the TV. We can be upset and outraged constantly. And the same is true in our own minds, that there's upsetting thoughts and emotions, and we can be upset all the time. Or we can start to realize that these thoughts, they're all occurring in the mind. They're all, and some of them are very, very pleasant, and some of them are very, very painful. And it's not that I'm balancing them, it's that they're all part of the dream. They're all part of mind, of consciousness. And equanimity is not a concept. Well, it is a concept, but the experience of equanimity is the experience of I don't mind.
I think part of the tangle that I was getting into is if I perceive it as a negative object and I perceive it as a positive object, and there's a certain amount of judgment.
Yeah.
And judgment that one is negative and one is positive. Mm-hmm. And maybe really it's I don't mind, or it just is.
And there are objects which are pleasant, and there are objects which are unpleasant. The second foundation of mindfulness, Vedana. It's why we practice Vedana, practice mindfulness of liking and disliking, because all day long, all week long, all lifetime long, there's pleasant and unpleasant, pleasant, and we're driven toward naturally, being mammals, being living beings, we seek out the pleasant. And it was part of survival. But to be identified with that pleasant and unpleasant really leads us to be tortured, to torture ourselves. So rather than negative and positive, a kind of mathematical term, we might think of it as pleasant and unpleasant. And there is a natural development of equanimity. I had the privilege a couple of years ago being around small children again, my grandchildren and my grandsons, and boy, especially the younger they are, like a 6-month-old, the swing between absolute bliss and absolute anger and hatred and pissed offness and where's my whatever, it's instantaneous. There's no equanimity at all. And around age 5, when the repression barrier comes in, according to the psychoanalysts, and you can begin to send kids to school because they have some capacity to have some equanimity, right? Oh, I didn't get the toy first. Oh, well, that's all right. I can get it next time. And we obviously can develop that in our lives, and we do. And the meditative undertaking of developing it highly means that we go through life. We still have all the liking and disliking, but we don't have to take it so seriously. Yeah. Thanks. Good question. By the way, that's an incredible quilt. Did you make that?
A girlfriend of mine made it for me, and isn't it beautiful? These are magpies. So magpies are one of my favorite birds. She
Yeah.
cut each one of them out, so you can see they're all different, and appliqued them on top of this quilt that is Roger and I's favorite colors, and she gave it to us as a wedding present. I love this thing, and she's died, and so it's a very precious thing.
Thank you. It's really beautiful. I've noticed it many times when you've been sitting there.
Nice.
Robert,
Tim.
when you were talking about just now not minding, I was remembered something. When I was young, my early 20s, late teens, and I worked as a manual laborer, and had an injury, hurt my back, and that was painful, but it was also frightening because I didn't know how I was going to make a living. So there was this whole what's going to happen, oh shit, oh dear thing. And right around that time, and I was kind of just trying to figure out how to deal with this pain, how to live with it, what to do with it. In retrospect, it was very, aversion and Buddhist stuff experience. But there was a movie that was popular around that time called Lawrence of Arabia.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a scene in there, and I don't remember exactly what's going on, but Lawrence is having to sit down and talk with this enemy leader guy. And at some point, they're kind of having a macho pissing match, sort of, in a way. Anyhow, at some point, he holds his hand over a candle, and he just holds it over there. And he's kind of staring him in the eye, doing cowboy stuff in a way. But, and so the guy says, and I remember this so clearly, so what's the trick? Why doesn't it hurt? And Lawrence says, the trick is not that it doesn't hurt. The trick is not the mind that it hurts. And that had it, the Dharma is where you find it, that had a profound effect on me in dealing with the suddenly acquired frequent excruciating pain. Oh, the trick is not the mind that it hurts.
That's beautiful.
How do I do that? So anyhow,
yeah,
messed with that, and it was really, 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 really useful in my being able to continue to deal with this chronic pain.
That makes me think that would be a really interesting movie to watch again. From this age.
Wouldn't it just?
Huh. Yeah. Orance. I remember the boy that used to call him Orance. Thank you.
Good morning, Robert. It's Kathy.
Hello, Kathy.
I have two little things. One is that I got on a little bit early this morning, and Tim and Sandra were talking to each other, and I jumped in there because I have a son on Vancouver Island, and I found it really so much fun to have a little conversation before meditation because I never came to the Sangha before COVID, so it was kind of nice just to have a little connection beforehand. So I enjoyed that. And the second thing is my heart is sort of feeling sort of like full of sparkly stuff this morning, and it's kind of fun. But when you came in and you start like you often do, you said, I'm coming to you in the world known as Robert Beatty or something like this, like you often say. And I switched it all around in my mind as like, oh, this is the Robert Beatty world. And then I thought, I wonder what the Kathy world is that I bring into the world. And so I just had I had a lot of fun with that in the beginning of the meditation.
Funny. Thank you. We do bring a world to each other, don't we? Yeah, it was an interesting conversation. I was curious about your son being on that farm and doing beyond sustainable agriculture, like really healing the land agriculture. Yeah. I'm doing a tiny bit of that in my front garden. I have these raised beds, and it's not a financially sensible undertaking. We could buy the vegetables for probably a third of what I put into the garden each year, but it's the tilth of the soil is so wonderful. There's so much compost and organic matter, and it's just it's getting so you can crumble it in your hand. It's some very fertile soil right here in Western Portland. Thanks. Dave Mayer says Lawrence of Arabia is available on Amazon for $3.99. Cool. Lawrence of Arabia. Stop. Well, 8:15. Anything anyone would like to share? Leanne, there are no women speaking in the entirely nearly 3-hour movie. Well, now that's interesting. Well, I guess that's why someone's holding his hand over a candle. It's really interesting to go back and look at movies. I mean, the stuff that was, quote, okay and not noticed. And I probably shouldn't say this. I really love the movie Zorba the Greek. There's some lines in that really I found very helpful. Zorba says to the Englishman at one point, "Boss, you have to have a little madness, otherwise you'll never dare to cut the rope and be free." And Zorba's kind of a madman. And there's also the line John Kabat-Zinn got the name of his book from, which is the Englishman asks Zorba, "Have you ever been married?" And Zorba says, yeah, wife, house, kids, the whole catastrophe. And I talked about it for years, and then I watched it with my daughter, and she was aghast because it's there's some horrible treatment of one of the women in the movie. I mean, she's murdered in the end. And I never really noticed that part. It's interesting what we see and don't see. Still, of course.
I just put in the chat really quickly. We didn't talk about Earth Day yesterday, but yesterday was Earth Day, and I work as a research ecologist with rare and endangered plants.
Oh.
And a little celebration is that a rare plant that was endangered in the Willamette Valley is been delisted, so it is no longer endangered. So based on work that we have done in cooperation with lots of other people, it's like one little tiny celebration in kind of like the disaster of everything that we see around us. But anyway.
What plant?
Pardon?
What plant is it? Tell us about the plant.
It's called Bradshaw's Lomatium. It's like it looks like a Queen Anne's lace, kind of like it's in the carrot family. So lomatiums were all commonly food plants for Native Americans. They make really big they're called biscuit roots. Anyway, nonetheless, it's a tiny, like I said, it's like one positive in the kind of not so good stuff.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Anyway.
Thank you. Well, anything else? Well, let us sing our way out of here. See you on Sunday, perhaps, 10 o'clock. And if not, Monday morning with what I like to think of as monotonous regularity. You ready? May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Goodbye, dear friends. Have a lovely, mindful day.
Thanks, Robert.
May equanimity prevail.
Hi, everybody.
Robert.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Off to the boat.
Oh, good.
Rock the boat. Oh, that's a great song to get stuck in my head.
Sorry about that.
No, I love it. I used to sing that to Cam as like a fun thing. I'd like